Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the workshop Reclaiming Local Food Economies, Community Wealth, Territorial Resilience, and the Future of Food in Europe. My name is Anastasia. I will be hosting you today. And first of all, I would like to kindly ask you to set your name to change the name of your profile to your name, organization, and country, so that it is easier for us to connect with each other and to see where we're speaking from. Also, as you've probably already seen, this meeting is recorded. So if you do not wish to appear in the recording, please keep your cameras off. We'll be starting in just a few moments. We're now preparing and waiting for the people who'd still like to join us. In the meantime, I will present the team who made this event possible. First of all, we have Katerina Boucoyannis, the ECOLISE policy lead. We then have Pauline Tan, who has been supporting the social media dissemination. We have Enric Cachetas, who is doing the technical support, and myself as coordinator of the campaign. You will be welcome to ask questions during the event, either by writing them in the chat or by raising your hand and engaging directly with our speakers. The format today will be a short contextualization of the topic from an ECOLISE perspective given to us by CAT. Then we'll have a presentation of good practices regarding relocalization of food economies, and then a roundtable, a very interesting roundtable actually, regarding the same topic. And we very warmly welcome you to engage with our speakers today, and also to ask us any questions and ask them the questions that you might have on this topic. The event today is part of the advocacy campaign Communities for Future Good Food for All, which is grounded in ECOLISE policy positioning paper Reclaiming the Future of Food, Community Pathways to Resilience, Justice and Regeneration, the result of a participatory deliberation process. This event is also happening within the framework of Communities for Local Green Deals project, COM4LGD, and through this campaign, the Communities for Future Good Food for All campaign, we are also supporting the European Citizens Initiative Right to Food. So we welcome you to get familiar with all three of them. I believe you might have received some links already in preparation for this event. You will definitely receive all the links to the resources and projects or campaigns I'm mentioning here today in the chat. And you are welcome to contact us for more details if you're interested. If you wish to continue the discussion on the topic of food and food as a human right, you can also join, or in general, the localization of green deals. You can also join the Telegram channel of the Communities for Local Green Deals project, or follow the conversation and engage in the conversation regarding the localization of green deals via the LinkedIn group. You might have seen on the event webpage that you have the profiles of the speakers we have here today also there to consult. And you will also find in our blog posts on the ECOLISE website more information about the campaign and respectively the previous events which occurred, this being the third event in the series. And without further ado, if Katerina is ready, she can start her presentation.
Hi, thank you, Tasia, for the introduction. I'm just going to make another short introduction to why we're doing this campaign and where we're at in terms of EU food policy or food systems. So why are we talking about food systems? And we're talking about food systems because they're not a neutral infrastructure where we get our food from, where it comes from, who produces it. It reflects political choices about who benefits, who bears the costs, who gets to decide. And this dominant agro-industrial model that brings most of our food to our plates externalizes social and environmental costs, while concentrating power and wealth to certain hands. So what is happening at EU level right now? This commission started with the farmers' process, the protests all around Europe, that continued till recently. And that's when they started the strategic dialogue that was quite a fruitful dialogue between civil society organizations and it was called the Strategic Dialogue on the Future of EU Agriculture, and it had some very interesting outcomes in terms of what the future food systems for EU could look like. And the Commission took the dialogue and translated into a future, to the vision of the future for agriculture and food in the EU, which unfortunately was not what the civil society organizations who participated in the dialogue expected, because it fell short in terms of food system transformation, which was the biggest problem that it was trying to deal. And also, the current commission dropped the Sustainable Food Systems Law, which was an initiative that started back in 2021. It was part of the EU Green Deal, and it just recently got finally and holistically abandoned, unfortunately, which is a major backdrop in terms of food system transformation in the EU. But this is where we come in, trying to be positive and saying that within this problem, there lies a key for regeneration, and we're going to hear some of these stories today. But the whole process of getting here today was an ECOLISE-led process of participatory policy positioning, where we gathered stories like the ones you're going to hear from our speakers today, where we try to collect, to co-create and imagine what the transformation of food systems could look like. And we reached this collaboratively written manifesto for community-led food system transformation, titled Reclaiming the Future of Food, that we invite you to read. And we're going to share an extended version pretty soon. And the key points that relate to food systems is that we urge the strengthening of local and regional food systems and the necessary infrastructure to adapt to local contexts. Food governance and all the EU funding that could change the food systems, they need to to support small producers and rebalance the food chain. And also when it comes to procurement, which is an interesting time for it, it has a very strong power to transform what local food systems could look like. And this is exactly where we're at, because this is what the EU is discussing as we speak, the food procurement laws. And this is what we're trying to to affect, essentially, to kind of bring the request for localized and sustainable food systems. So this is a very short introduction to where we're at. There's still the motivation is still there, and the moment is important. So I will give it back to Tasia to introduce the speaker that will share the stories of food system transformation.
Thank you very much, Katerina. I think your presentation serves as a very good starting point to understand where we're at, but also more importantly, to look at what we already see happening in our everyday life and what we do in our projects, and where we can further come together and solidify our networks and alliances for food system transformation towards regeneration and also toward food as a human right. I just have, yes. The following section of this event is dedicated, like Katerina said, to sharing the practices of food relocalization, of community wealth building, and how territorial resilience. just a quick organizational note to Katerina. Our practice sharers today are Milagros Bullón from Arterra Bizimodu Eco-Village, Spain, Johannes Kübel from Kopernikus Cooperative, Switzerland, and Jonet from the Liege Food Belt. I'm very happy to welcome with us today Millie, and she will tell us more about, she was born in Argentina, is an agricultural engineer specialized in sustainability, and since 2022, Milagros joined the Arterra Bizimodu Eco-Village in Navarra, Spain, as a volunteer, beginning thus her journey into eco-social transition through the global eco-village movement. She currently resides in the same eco-village, where she co-founded and co-managed an ecological agricultural project. Welcome, Millie. Thank you for being here. You can take over whenever you feel ready, and I will also start sharing your slides.
Thank you, Anastasia. Hello, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. I'm speaking from Arterra Bizimodu, and as it was mentioned, Arterra is an intentional community in the north of Spain, where around 30 people are experimenting with how to live and organize ourselves in more sustainable and collective ways. In the slides that are currently being shared, you can appreciate some pictures from the community daily life and also some pictures of the projects we are currently developing here in Arterra. So I would like to share some concrete experiences from our territory from the perspective of the social economy in food systems. In Arterra, we approach food sovereignty from different angles, reclaiming our food economy at a local level. One example is our consumer group, structured as a circle within our sociocratic governance system. Through this group, we organize access to organic and mostly local food through collective orders directly from producers every 2 weeks, and a shared pantry based on self-service. It is a really simple system, but it's based on trust, shared responsibility, and transparency. On the other hand, we are also connected to a broader territorial initiative that is called Waving the Pantry. This initiative includes 57 municipalities and brings together different actors in the food chain to strengthen a local food system in a rural area affected by the population. So the work is not only about food, but it has to do with keeping life in the territory alive. The approach is based on sustainability, circular economy, and food sovereignty, trying to ensure that food nourishes people, local economies, and the territory itself. Arterra functions as a logistical support point for this network, and some people from the community are directly involved on it. In Arterra, one of our focuses is food sovereignty and the strengthening of the rural environment. So we promote the development of initiatives that are sustainable and improve the local economy. And how we do this through facilities that the community allows, such as more accessible space rentals, sometimes barter, and the use of communal lands. And right now, at the moment, some of the projects currently being developed in Arterra are Baratamlai, which is a community-supported ecological agriculture project. And we also have Ucalde, which produce preserves from local and seasonal food, helping to close the cycle of what is produced in the territory. And here I would like to bring a more personal perspective on this topic, because a few years ago I started a small agroecological project together with another person from the community. We sustained it together for approximately 2.5 years. And I started this project because, as it was said, I studied to be an agricultural engineer, and I was clear that I wanted to do agriculture from a perspective that cares for the people, the land, and the territory. It is a project that has made a lot of sense to me on a personal level because it was aligned with my values, but I also encountered important difficulties through the process. I'm a migrant, and I have been living in Spain for 5 years now. In that moment, we tried to access public and private funding, but we did not succeed. Many subsidies do not adapt to projects of this scale or come with conditions that limit what and how we can produce. So we had to rely on our own savings and combine the project with other jobs. And the reality is that incomes in this kind of initiatives are usually unstable and very low. And in my case, it was not enough to sustain a stable life. And this is something that I also see around me. Many people doing ecological agriculture do it with a lot of commitment and love, but often while sustaining situations of high precarity. In that sense, another key challenge is the access to land. In our case, the project was possible because it was embedded in a community. We used communal land and also land that some people had bought and made available through agreements. But without these conditions, it would be much harder to even start a project of these characteristics. So this year I decided to step aside from the project. At the same time, my colleague joined Barat Blai, continued this path in another way. For me, leaving the project was not about it not being valuable, but about the need to have more economic stability. And I think this is a key question for how to approach these initiatives, not only on how we create them, but how we make them viable for the people who sustain them. Because if these systems depend on constant sacrifice, they are not really resilient. From what we see in Arterra and in the territory, these initiatives are already working. They are real, they make sense, and they point on a different direction. But as I see, the challenge now is how do we create the conditions so that more people can participate in them without having to choose between their values and their livelihood? This is all for me for now. Thank you very much, and open to questions.
Thank you very much, Millie, for such a down-to-earth and personal account of the realities of relocalizing food systems. And like you were saying, I think it's very important to know that your experience happened where you also already had the community and networks in place, right? So without that, it's almost virtually impossible to even start such initiatives and even the transformation of food systems, I would say. You can also add your questions for Millie later, if any come to mind. Thank you again, Millie. And I would like to present our next speaker, who is Johannes Kübel from the Kopernikus cooperative in Switzerland. Johannes is a social entrepreneur and systems innovator, working at the intersection of community-led economies, regenerative food systems, and cooperative infrastructure. He is based in Switzerland, serves on the Council of Gen Europe, and is the initiator of Kopernikus Initiative, which connects regional producers directly with urban businesses. His vision is that cities source food directly from regional organic farmers, strengthening territorial resilience and fair value distribution. Welcome, Johannes. I'm looking forward to hearing more about how you bring your vision to life within the Kopernikus cooperative.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? See me?
All good.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, ECOLISE, for inviting. Just going to share the presentation. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, nice. So, Kopernikus was initiated in one of my communities in Zurich at Jupiter House. It's an urban community. We founded 6 years ago. And I met there some very good friends who has the same intention to relocalize food systems. And we were also looking for a systemic approach, how we could do it. And that's how we founded Kopernikus. And we were seeing that there was some problems also in Switzerland, but I believe also in a lot of our countries right now, and it's also that we mentioned before, that we experienced a huge pressure right now on the farmers, on the local farmers, and that we have a lot of environmental and social consequences on that. And also a lot of farms are dying in Switzerland, but I imagine also a lot of other countries. So we have more bigger farmers who is more centralized and who works then more with traders and big supermarket chains. And that's a direction that we don't think it's sustainable, because you have very big power structures around food system who are controlling the whole food chain, and you have less diversity and less resilience than in the long term. And of course, all the environmental consequences, and that's how we are going to farm. Such for big supermarkets, it's not something that is nice. And it's also a capitalistic approach, you know. So even though the margins are very low in the food sector, there's still profit-oriented companies who are growing and also extracting profit out of it. And that's, for us, not a way to go. And that's the intention why we want to change something. And we believe much more in cooperation. We believe much more in a community approach. And that's why we founded a cooperative who are only working at the region with different farmers, with different shops, with different restaurants and different processes. And that's the intention why we created the cooperative 3 to 4 years ago, where we are all in working together in the value chain. And that's something really nice, because then you can strengthen the little parts of the value chain together, and also support more direct trade between the farmers to the restaurants or to communities or food co-ops. And you don't have to go more the way through the trader or supermarkets, but you can go directly directly to the source. And we have to go more directly to the source. That's what we then prototyped in the last years with some farmers, with our community, with a lot of other grocery stores and communities and restaurants. And we were thinking one step further, no? Because we were seeing, hey, there is actually a huge city like Zurich who has a lot of schools, kindergartens, hospitals, retirement homes. And we believed that they have a big responsibility in our current situation of food systems. And they have the power to buy food for a lot of people daily. And so we were in the last years already lobbying a lot that they really needed to buy more organic, more directly from the farmers and more from the region. And we convinced them so well that they were agreeing on to work together for the next 3 to 5 years. And so we are supplying 161 public institutions right now. And we're working together with 17 farmers. We have around 210 products, and we have around 1,000 orders each month. And that's something great, because now we can support the regional agriculture, the organic agriculture. And we believe that's a project also, or a lighthouse project for a lot of other cities, that they do the same, no? And we got so much, you could say, lobbying, that now they will also decide not only on the price, because even though we don't have such great price for us and also for the farmers, we still manage now that the next years, when they are writing out the applications, they decide also on social and ecological criteria more and more. And that's something we need to push a lot, because at least in Switzerland, or at least I believe also in a lot of other cities, they're looking, of course, also on the money, no? But if they can change a little bit more, also to look more on the social and environmental criteria, it's a huge chance that also other initiatives can start their projects in their cities, and then they can work together with the cities. So our next steps is also that we want to introduce e-bike delivery or bike delivery, because we are still in a urban city. It's a lot still fossil fuels deliveries. And so we are looking forward to try also to build our own logistic network with e-bikes. We want to include more local farmers, and then also because we have already the process and the logic of operations for the public institutions, we want also to reach private institutions like universities or like other schools or other bigger canteens, that we can reach also, or more food corps. That's actually one of the other main goals of us, that we create more food corps. And we are working also with other organizations. Food corps are like neighborhood associations that they buy together collectively directly from the farmers. And also we are looking for a new farm or warehouse right now. And it is still an entrepreneurial concept. So it means we are also dependent from financing. We got lucky, of course, with the contract with the city, that we have a security for finances. So we could secure finances. And for the next steps, if we want to develop, there's also finances needed. But as a cooperative, we are also like non-profit, and we are also attractive to, you could say, people who has money for us, who are more looking for the impact and less for the profit. And we are looking also for interested city councils who are interested in this concept, or also on local policy and entrepreneur partners, because we want to spread this information, this knowledge as much as possible now, because we believe this is a huge impact that we can create long term. And yeah, that's what Kopernikus is doing. If you have some questions or feedback, you can write me on Johannes or Kopernikus.ch. And yeah, I'm looking forward to continue this journey, and yeah, also one day maybe connect more with the eco-village movements, that we can have more communities and the food supply combined, that we can become more independent together as from big companies now. And yeah, that's all. Thank you for that I could share it, and yeah, I'm open for questions or actions.
Thank you very much, Johannes. I wrote here your email address, but if it's not correct, please take a look and verify if it's the right one. Thank you very much. It's quite fascinating to hear how cooperation can happen through, on the one hand, of the creation of the cooperative, but on the other hand, on how cooperating with local administration and other enterprises and institutions can bring also this this cooperation forward. We do have a question from you for Dora. A question for you from Dora, who would like to know, how else do you work with educational establishments? Is it only about selling your products, or is there more to it?
At the moment, we have only capacity to offer them organic food for the kitchens. But we are looking forward also to, if there's more capacity and more finances, that we do also educational programs or other things.
Thank you. And before going forward with our next speaker, I also wanted to add that in terms of costs and savings, it would be interesting to look at how the health costs in the region evolve, right? Because if we eat better local food, then we might get less sick. So I think for the medium and long term, that's also something to look into in terms of local expenses, right? So thank you very much for your presentation. I will go ahead and present or introduce to you Christian Jonet from the Liege food belt, Ceinture Alimentaire Liégeoise. From Belgium, Christian is the coordinator of this multi-stakeholder platform. He has helped build since its founding in 2013. CATL has become a recognized regional model for bridging cooperative production, public procurement, and school canteen supply chains. His work sits at the intersection of food sovereignty, social economy, and territorial resilience, demonstrating that community-led food transitions can scale into genuine systemic change. Hello, Christian. Thank you for being here. I'm very much looking forward to your presentation of the work of the CATL. We cannot hear you, although you don't seem to be muted. There's no sound at all. Not at all. And you're not muted, as far as I can see.
You have headphones? You have headphones that you can try?
Okay, we're going to be waiting for Christian for 2 minutes. In the meantime, we actually have some more questions for Johannes, I think. If he's still with us. Thank you for coming back. So we have a question from Daniel. If you manage a surplus in any way in your cooperative work.
Yeah, so the good thing about local food system is that and also direct trade is that the schools are ordering directly from the farmers, and so there's not a surplus. They just get directly the food what they need from the farmers. But there's the import products, no? Some, for example, in our case in Switzerland, lemons or oranges, and we try to manage in a warehouse in a way that we don't have so much food waste. So we are looking exactly what is needed, and also we have like a fast turnaround of the product. So there's only some days that they are staying in the warehouse, and then they're going out quickly again. And so that's a way we don't have so much waste or surplus now. And that's also very important for our business in this way, because otherwise, also ecological, but also financial wise, it's could be challenging then.
Thank you for that. If you would like to have a look at the chat, I think there's more questions for you there. And in the meantime, let's try again with Christian. Still no.
Maybe try to rejoin the meeting?
Yes.
Hello?
Oh, much better now.
Yeah, I have joined you with my telephone. I'm connected on 2 devices at the same time. Maybe you are ready for my presentation?
We are. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I hope I will be clear because I have a flu. Both of my ears are blocked, but I will do my best. So. Can you hear my presentation?
We can hear you and see the presentation, yes.
Fantastic. So CATL means Liege Food Belt. It's an association from Liege in Belgium. It's a French-speaking part of Belgium. And its objective is to help transform the food system and to make it more local, sustainable, and socially just. So it's a story that began 13 years ago. So in 2013, we had a general mobilization of the driving forces of the Liege region. We had 600 people participating to this event during 2 days. And we tried to build a collective plan from a process of collective intelligence. So the set of instruction was, how can we imagine and ensure that within a generation, the majority of the food consumed locally is produced locally under the best possible ecological and social conditions. And so these 600 people participated to reflection, and they identified major work areas. They said that we need to work on the missing links in the local food chain, on developing the necessary economic support, facilitating access to agricultural land, securing the funding of the project, raising public awareness of food issues and involving them in the process, and indeed mobilizing public players, and finally to build the logistics of the short food chains. And this work that was made initially is still relevant 30 years later. We've made most of what's written here. The first period of time of Liege Food Belt was really about supporting the development of new cooperative economic projects. So since 2013, it's more than 30 cooperatives, food cooperatives that have been created in the Liege region. So food production, food transformation, or food distributions in very many categories of food. So the first period of time was really about supporting this boom of cooperative activity. And after 4 years, we decided that we needed to put more efforts on the development of awareness raising, as well with the general public and with the general authorities. So it is at that time that we created the Food Transition Festival that is named Liege and Feeding Liege, Nourrir Liege en français. So this week we are going to have the 10th edition of this festival, but the first was in 2017. And at that time, so we had already thousands of people taking part to more than 100 activities. It was like conference, debates, visits of farmers, and so on, many things. But we had a political debate about the quality of the food served in the schools and nurseries of the city of Liege. And we had the testimony from a very famous endocrinologist from Liege University about the dangers of endocrine disruptors for children, especially in their food. And after this political debate, there was a motion taken by the Liege Municipal Council deciding to remove endocrine disruptors from the canteens and from the food. And so they decided they wanted the food in the school and canteen to be as organic, as local as possible. This was really the beginning of a big adventure. So the start of a collaboration also. So the city of Liege asked us, okay, we want to go full organic and local for our kitchens, for the children, but how can we do that? And we told them that we had two very big missing links, a missing link regarding the logistics, and also a missing link regarding the the food transformation, and in particular, the vegetables transformation, because most community kitchen cannot receive vegetables that come directly from the field with the mud and so on. And we told them that we needed to have a facility, a big facility that would do that for all of the big community kitchens around Liège. So they put that, these two missing links in their strategic programs. It was in 2019. So it was in their strategic program, political strategic project, and they helped us doing that. So regarding these two buildings that we needed, they were located in a place called Marché Matinal de Liège. It means the Liège morning market. It is the place where historically you have the business of food in the region of Liège. So it's 3 kilometers away from the center of Liège, but all of the economical activities around food are there. But most of the enterprises located there don't do business with organic food or with local food. So these two new activities that we wanted to create were going to be very different on that level. So below, you can see that we have the logistics center that was created in 2022. And this building was bought by the city of Liège to all help us to do that. And above, you see that we have the brand new vegetable and cannery factory, which was inaugurated in last November. So more details, maybe. So this is the first building really about the logistics of the short food chains. So it's a 1,000 square meters building where we gathered several cooperatives who developed new services, and in particular B2B services. So they build a service where they can serve directly community kitchens, hospitals, resting homes, nurseries, schools with local organic food. And you can see that we have a charter of this place. So it's called Pôle Circuit Court. And in this charter, we stated, for instance, that at least 70% of the products that are sold must be organic, or that 70% of the selling price must go directly in the pocket of the producer. Or you can also see that at least 60% of the turnover must come from locally sourced products. So all of the cooperatives that are part of this Pôle Circuit Court must follow this charter. And as I told you, we had the inauguration of a big infrastructure in last November, which is the vegetable and canning factory. So it's a 3,000 square meter infrastructure that was built with the support from the Walloon and European recovery plans. So it's active. It's also run by a cooperative of our network. It's named Terra Alta Cooperative, and it's already serving, the big community kitchen in our region. One last thing that I would like to tell you about our territory is that we have a political food council. So on an area of 24 municipalities and an area where we have more than 600,000 inhabitants. And we have in this food council 120 members. So they were elected to be part of it, and they are members for a duration of 2 years. And they are working on very various projects. For instance, they are working on the One Health approach, on food social security, on agricultural lands, on exchange of best practices among collective kitchens. I told you about the 400 meals that the Liege city is producing for their school and canteens, these 400 meals are now as organic, local, and in local food chain as possible. But in the working group with the other collective kitchens of the region, the big collective kitchen of the regions, we have a potential of 70,000 meal every day that can be more sustainable, and they are exchanging their best practices to make that possible. So it's a big reservoir or a big potential that we have to change the food in our collective kitchens, in our rest homes, hospitals, schools, and so on. So that was the examples that I wanted to share with you. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Christian, for such a complete presentation of your practices in Liege. I think, to me, it's very hope-inducing to hear that this is possible, right? This kind of scaling, but also this kind of collaboration, and also this kind of thinking outside the box in terms of the infrastructure needed and actually getting it built in this partnership with local administration. We'll hear more from you during the roundtable. So thank you again. And now, before we move to the discussion facilitated by Katerina, I would like for us to take the photo for this event. So everyone who wants to be in this, please turn on your cameras, smile for the camera, and Enrique will tell us when it's done.
And we go in 3, 2, 1, smile. It's done.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to everyone who presented their practices here. And I would like to ask Katerina to start the roundtable whenever she's ready.
The presentations. We have so many different practices all around Europe, and we wanted to bring them here. So we have invited a couple more people to share a little bit, a bit more specifics. And I'd like to ask them questions. I'm going to start with Davie from Ireland, who is a facilitator in local food systems with over 25 years of experience. He's based in Cultivate Village, where he's part of the community-supported agriculture scheme. But also, he's part of Feeding Ourselves. He's the coordinator of Feeding Ourselves, which is a community of practice, like a national network that strengthens local food economies. So it comes with different levels and supporting food system transformation. So, Davie, could you share through your local CSA practice what skills and knowledge do you think we need for food system transformation?
Thanks, Katerina, and thanks everyone. And the previous presentations were fantastic, really inspirational. I've been involved in local food since the late 90s with Dublin Food Co-op, the largest food cooperative here, and then with community-supported agriculture in our eco-village. So we've got the largest CSA project in Ireland, and still with very few of these. So Ireland has got a very poor food culture compared to other places in Europe. So we're catching up. I think your question, Katerina, what sort of competencies, what sort of skills do we need, I think, for local food? I think there's quite a lot of, obviously, and I'll come back to it, is we need more local food producers to be growing more produce for local consumption. But if we want to look at maybe some of the not so obvious skill sets, I would say it's around building the ecosystems and the relationships and the connections, not just between producers or food producers, farmers and eaters, but in local food webs or regional, bioregional, local food economies And I think that's what we need to see a bit more. So I'm involved in a European Horizon project called the EU for Advice, which is all about short food supply chain advisory services across Europe. We don't have any short food supply chain advisors in Ireland that are recognised, trained, or supported. So we're coming from a low base. But I do think that we need what we're calling in the more local food movement in Ireland, local food facilitators, non-formal advisors that make those connections that sort of help us imagine what could be possible and help us make the steps to set up a CSA or an online farmers market or a community garden or an agroecology project. So what I've really liked for the last 15 years, we've had this Feeding Ourselves gathering, which you just attended, which is in the last 6 years turned into more of a national or all Ireland community of practice. And I think that community of practice helps build the competencies and a stronger movement of practitioners that are both growers, local food organisers, researchers, advocates, policy influencers. So we start to work across silos, which is another skill set that's needed, that we bring in some ideas of community governance or how do we work better together. So I think in Ireland, we are slow to start the community-led food movement. We have a very poor food culture, but we have a strong tradition of cooperatives. And maybe there's the leverage point, I think, to start to get more momentum for short food supply chains and more resilient local food economies.
We had already heard already from Christian, and we heard from Davie about feeding ourselves and building this movement. But seeing CATL, it's always very interesting to imagine what kind of invisible work goes into this. Like Davie is a very good example of that. But I wanted to ask Christian, what beyond all the obvious wins and the cooperatives and so on, what does the invisible relational work actually require? Like, what does it take emotionally, organizationally, like working with all these producers, with these policy stakeholders, and so on?
Can you hear me again?
Yes.
Okay, I'm switching from one apparatus to another. Thank you for this question. It touches something quite important. And if I look back at these more than 10 years with Liege Football, I would say that beyond the projects, the infrastructure or the policies, the real work has always been relational. And it is quite demanding, emotionally, ethically, or in terms of organization. And one of the foundations for us has been to clearly for a project of general interest. We are not here to defend one sector or a corporation or a specific interest group. We are working towards what we believe is fair, healthy, and environmentally respectful for the food system. And it's a form of clarity that matters. It creates a form of legitimacy, and it helps people to understand that we are trying to serve something larger than ourselves. But legitimacy alone is not enough. So what really holds things together is trust, which requires a lot of consistency. We have learned to be very attentive to transparency with our partners. It means to say what we do and do what we say. And especially with public authorities, trust takes years to build, and it can be lost very quickly. So a large part of the invisible work is simply being reliable, keeping commitments, and not playing double games. And finally, you have transparency, trust, transparency, but you also need a shared sense of belonging. People need to feel that they are part of community values. And that's where the more invisible dimensions become essential. Really creating spaces of conviviality, moments of joy, informal encounters. And if people enjoy being together, they will likely stay longer. And if they stay, things become possible. So we learned from Rob Hopkins, from the transition movement, that it was really important to pay attention to celebrating small steps. So it's not a luxury. It's something very important. It's like part of the strategy. And finally, I would say another key aspect of my answer to your question is about creating an ethic of care and mutual support. Because in this kind of work, people are exposed to conflicts, complexity, to emotional load sometimes. So we try to ensure that no one is left alone with their difficulties. It means checking in with each other, taking over when someone is exhausted, allowing ourselves to slow down when needed. It's not always easy in a context that pushes for constant acceleration, but it's essential if we want our movement to last. So that's the main thing that I would like to share with you, I think.
Thank you very much, Christian. That's really nice to hear. And you're talking about the foundations of building community, and we have another community building here that is tackling another massive aspect of food waste, of food systems, which is food waste. Daniel Martínez Ayer from Espigoladors, if I'm pronouncing it correct, who's building community through from gleaning. So my question to you is, first of all, explain what is it exactly that gleaning is and what you're doing through your project, and how and what potential you think that community engagement activities, such as the volunteer gleaning networks, have in fostering the collective demand for change in food systems? We can't hear you. You're still muted. Daniel, we have to unmute.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Now you can hear me. Cool. Thank you for having me. It's been super interesting so far to hear all these experiences. I'll try and keep myself to the time, but then when I start speaking, it's I see no end. Espigoladors, for those that you don't know, as we started in 2014, a dream of 2 or 3 people really wanting to change the world, because like we live in a world that we throw 1/3 of the food we produce in the planet, and that's a lot. And most of this food is not even accounted for, because it's considered by the EU and most of the member states like organic residue. No? All those cabbages and carrots that have not been harvested, they're considered as organic residue and not really as food. It's only when you've harvested them and they enter the food chain, they started to be called food, and if we lose it along the way, it's food loss. So we also working a lot on that, on trying to quantify the amount of food that is actually being left behind in the fields, which is the core of what we do. We started in 2014 fighting food loss and waste. Our core activity, and what gives us the name in Spanish and Catalan, is espigoladors, which the word in English is gleaning. It's a traditional practice where communities usually used to be humble families would harvest the leftovers after the main commercial harvest. That ancestral practice had been lost with time and with globalization. However, we decided to recover it and dignify it, keep it very community-based. We chose a model of bringing volunteers into the fields to actually see what's going on. Volunteers go to the fields, pick what the market has rejected for a myriad of reasons, and then we distribute it amongst people from vulnerable backgrounds that typically has no access to these type of fresh and locally grown food. Like we've been investigated, and our diets in general are declining, and eating local, organic, and fresh is getting more and more expensive. And we can see that people from vulnerable backgrounds, they seem to only have access to ultra processed food, which seems to be a lot cheaper than locally sourced. We didn't only stop there. We also ran a social insertion food production center where we turn surplus into delicious preserves and jams and marmalades, and we do it on a model of social inclusion, a social enterprise. We take the fruit and vegetables discarded, these ones for aesthetic reasons, and these ones have been already harvested by the producers, like all those crooked aubergines, weird shaped carrots, and then we turn them into vegetable pates and sweet preserves. The center currently employs more than 30 people on social insertion contracts. So we're just not recovering food, we're also recovering people and creating community. But going back to our volunteers, our volunteer force are regular citizens. Everybody is invited to join us, and we do it for a very specific reason. They show a wider cross section of the population, at least in Spain, and also in order to give opportunities to underprivileged minorities, we also work with different grants and projects to try and get people that receive the food, people, users of food aid organizations, to get them involved to actually come gleaning to the fields as well. And we also do work with private companies and corporations, so bringing their staff into the field. So we try to reach as much people as possible, because what we want to do is to produce impact and create community. So for years, we focused on rural gleaning, which is what gleaning is all about. But around 2020, and more in the center of this conversation that we're having, we realized something, that most people live in cities, and that also was very restrictive to getting these volunteers into the fields if you don't have a big budget to get them there, which will make us unsustainable for all the petrol using to drive these people to recover this food. So we started asking, can we glean in cities? Is there something we can do about it? And originally around 2020, we partnered with the Barcelona Council to co-create a project harvesting the bitter oranges in one small district. Those bitter oranges are normally planted to make the cities beautiful, to make them smell nice in the spring, where the orange trees are in bloom, and then they produce these big fruits that when they're in season, they fall onto the ground, they're a danger for the citizens, and they cost a lot of money to the councils to actually treat as residues. So so we started exploring this with like an exploratory grant, and it kind of worked. We mapped over 100 towns in Catalonia and all the fruiting trees like mulberries, olives, oranges, quinces. And we also, like, changing a little bit from dealing with farmers and producers to dealing with administrations and local municipalities, we also learned that they spend huge amounts of money treating this fruit as a waste, because you have to prune trees in a certain way so they minimize the fruit production. and then process all the fruits and all that printing and everything was very costly, no? And we're in this process now of shifting our lens from farmers' problems to policymakers' design problems, no? And what's happening in our cities. So now we have a fully fledged project we call Urbanita, making this link between the rural environment and the city environment, and we want to create a community of edible cities, no? This project is not just about recovery. It's about asking councils, why are you planting these trees when you could have planted, why are you planting these decorative trees when you could have planted edible ones, making your citizens more resilient? Why are you paying to destroy fruit when we can turn it into community juice or preserves? Why you don't involve the local communities to strengthen the bond between the citizens and the green environments, no? So our evolution is very simple. We started in the fields, feeding the people, and then we moved to the cities and trying to change policies, no? And how policymakers go about designing this and spending our public money. But at every step, the community, our volunteers, whether they are like regular citizens, people from vulnerable backgrounds, people coming from companies, have been the engine. And this is how food waste really becomes territorial resilience.
Thank you. Had many examples, and we see projects that are already in the very advanced phase. And the question is, what do we do when where do we start in a different region? And we have here Fabio Villani from the Scottish Climate Action Network, who can tell us a little bit about how it started, how the region Moray in Scotland started thinking about transforming the food system and looking within what the capacity is to change it. Thank you for joining us, Fabio.
Thank you very much, Katerina, and thank you to all the very inspiring speakers that I've had the joy and privilege to listen to until now, because a lot of inspiration, a lot of good ideas that will certainly help us in Moray and the northeast of Scotland to move forward. Particularly a shout out to Christian, because the Liege Food Belt project is one of 3 European examples that we have been looking at, and we'll definitely be looking at what you've been doing in more detail. But so, where does it all start? Well, it usually starts with a conversation between a couple of people around the table, with food and usually something to drink to go alongside it. And this project, I guess, is not any different from that rule. It really was born from a curiosity of a question, really, how much of the food that is consumed in Moray, which is a region in the, as I said, northeast of Scotland with 90,000 people, but quite a lot of land, how much of the food that's consumed in Moray is actually produced and sold in Moray. And Moray produces most of the grain for the whiskey industry, and that's where the Scotch whisky really comes from. Speyside is part of Moray, and it has some of the best land in Scotland. And the answer was really quite shocking. About 5% of what we consume is produced in Moray. The rest comes produced and sold in Moray. The rest comes through mainly large supermarkets. We've got 10 big supermarkets in the UK, in the United Kingdom, and 7 of them supply 70-80% of the food that's consumed in Moray. You can go to a supermarket and buy a local carrot, but that local carrot will have gone on a 900-mile journey to go and get washed, graded, packaged, and sent back. So Moray is acting as a third world economy, where we just produce the kind of primary materials and then send them away for the value to be added elsewhere, accumulating a carbon footprint all the way along. So the question was simple: can Moray feed itself? And the starting point was, how much of it is it feeding itself? And the shocking answer was 5%. The much more inspiring answer is we could produce 78% of our food, and that is without changing people's diets. So we're not people to change their behaviors. We don't have to use heat. We do need to use greenhouses and polytunnels, but it's possible, technically possible, to provide 78% of the food we use by growing it and processing and distributing it here. But there are a lot of challenges, of course. The challenges, we always thought that the amount of land that would be needed would be the main challenge. It turns out it isn't. It's a lot of hectares, but in terms of percentage of the agricultural land in Murray is about 5% of the agricultural land, about 7% of the arable and 4% of the hill land. That's really important to us because it means we don't have to make enemies by having statements like, oh, we should not be growing grain for whiskey, or we should not be growing grain for animal feed. We can actually coexist with existing economies while leveraging a system change that would transform not just how food is produced and consumed in Murray, but also, and certainly my own aspiration and some of others some of the other people involved, can actually shift a whole system change in terms of an economy that it's designed for the well-being of people and planet, people, places, and planet, rather than for the accumulation of money and capital by a very few people. So that's where the question came from, and that was the interesting answer. Of course, there are a number of policy changes that would really help things to happen, particularly sustained policy framework that can be sustained over something like 20, 25 years to really embed it. But the place we're choosing to start from is to actually do the kind of community-led part. And by community-led, we don't just mean community gardens and allotments and small scale, important and crucial as that is in terms of providing inspiration and proving that the concepts can work, but actually encouraging some mainstream farmers to begin to produce food for local consumption, putting in place either community-owned and/or cooperatives that can address issues around the processing of food, the storage of food, the distribution of food, and the retail. So we've done some work on what kind of co-ops models might best work for that, and that's work in progress. And just this morning I was having what felt like a big step forward, a conversation with a colleague from the public sector, from the health services in Scotland, and agreeing, beginning to agree what a good food partnership for Murray would look like, that would bring together public sector colleagues, including those involved in procurement, of course, buying food for our hospitals, schools, and so on, but also private sector and what we call the third sector, the community, voluntary sector, the people that make things happen on the ground. Like Danny, I could talk for weeks about what I'm passionate about, but I'll maybe pause for breath and see if you have a specific question.
We actually have a question from Ana Margarida. I don't know if she'd like to share, if I can read it. I can read it. So
yes,
how
you
to
can
create...
read.
Okay, thank you. So how to create, for all the speakers, I don't know who would like to respond, how to create economies of scale that makes food products from decentralized local food systems as affordable and attractive as those globalized mass production-oriented food chains. Otherwise, how do we attract public or philanthropic investments for these goals? I don't know who would like to respond to this.
One of our challenges is the high cost of low price. that would become used to low price for food, and that might be challenging. So I think we do have to decommodify and take away the profits, I think, more, but we need, I think, shared economic approaches that might help do that. And the best one I've seen really emerging is community wealth building. Fabio is in Scotland. They've now got a minister for community wealth building. And a lot of the things we've heard about, like public procurement, getting the big spenders in the region, in the city, to spend locally, to spend with local food producers, for instance, in the food economy, will make a huge difference. If we could get local food producers supported by public procurement, and community wealth building has more than just procurement as a pillar. We need to build the capacity of our cooperatives and our community-led initiatives. So there's a capacity building piece for cooperatives. We need new financing. I mean, it's the economy. We're marginal and we're working outside the current neoliberal economy. So we're always going to be up against it. We need new forms of capital and support, and I think community ownership as well. We need to move not just from insecure, vulnerable, long supply chains. We don't need to just move to food security. We need this catalyst of the need for food security to bring us into food sovereignty. And that's a different approach, I think, and a different framing that would see us being more resilient. Resilience has come up quite a number of times, especially right now where we are. We are going to face the biggest disruption in supply chains, input costs rising in food security. So we really need to be, this could be a catalyst. If you want to look at catalysts, right now, never let a good crisis go to waste. Here we are, we're going to have a crisis. We'll put supply chains, how vulnerable long supply chains are, right into focus. These external input costs going up will put an unsustainable food system firmly in focus. And the communities and regions and cities that have been putting in place co-ops and different approaches to local food, like we've seen from Liege and in other places, I think are going to prosper better than people that haven't thought about this or put all their eggs into the current economy and long food supply chain. So I think that one of the catalysts, I think, and you've mentioned it there, Fabio, is shifting our focus of the economy from consumption and profit to care and resilience in our local places, and have economies that work for people and planet, not just for wealth extraction or billionaires. So I think this is what we're up against. We keep trying to challenge a dominant economic system that we are so marginal in. We're not trusted, as you're saying, Christian. I think these bottom-up and cooperative approaches to food aren't trusted by business as usual and the people are holding power. So I think this is what we need. We need a combination of new procurement, of new ways of distributing. I like Danny's examples of gleaning and bringing these things back. There's so much to do that we need more systemic approaches to bring these together and help people imagine. Really, it's a crisis of imagination at the end of the day. We can't imagine anything beyond what currently serves this neoliberal economy. And that's what we need. All of these projects need to be showcased to help us imagine, to see what's possible, and to build that capacity to work together to feed ourselves locally, I think is going to be key in the weeks and months now that we're facing.
Stay tuned for extended policy paper. And since you brought it up, we have here Martin Avila from European Community Organizing Network, who actually was a part of this community wealth proposal in the Scottish Parliament. So could you introduce us to that, please, Martin?
Yeah, thanks very much, Katerina. Hello, Fabio. Fabio and I know each other from a former professional life. I think almost for both of us, where I was involved in the the advisory committee for the bill. I think it's really fair to say, and apologies if I'm going over old ground, and also apologies if I'm speaking a little bit too fast. I think Davie and Fabio have a chance, but if anybody else doesn't catch the English, it's really my fault, not yours. So community wealth building really starts from that place that Davie mentioned, that we are in a highly financialized, highly extractive neoliberal economy. And it also fundamentally recognizes that you can't fix what your economy sets out to break. You know, the standard economic approaches have been, let's grow the economy at all costs, and then let's try and mitigate the problems that causes. You know, and Davie talked a little bit about the expensive cheap food, and it's really that problem with externalized costs that are not recognised in the initial value that community wealth building seeks to address. So it seeks to create an economy which doesn't create problems that needs to be solved, and that's really the fundamental approach that the Scottish Government, at least in theory, want to take with this bill. So looking at the full 5 pillars, what the bill wants to do is it wishes to seek to place a responsibility on local authorities to work within community wealth building principles as well. So as a minimum, each public body, so that means local authorities, but also means the health boards, it also means the universities, anybody who's considered a public body will be required to create a community wealth building plan. That plan should work across all 5 pillars. So it shouldn't just be about the procurement, but it should be, how do they support democratic ownership? How do they ensure that the wages that they pay are fair and living wages? It seeks to address the problem that actually, you know, very much like we have in Ireland, where you have a huge GDP, but all the money goes away. So it seeks to create a conditions where the money can recirculate locally. And so, as well as the community wealth building plan, they will be required by legislation to engage with communities and stakeholders as well. Also, one of the biggest problems that we face is that institutions working alone are not going to be able to address these issues. So they will be again forced by legislation to collaborate with other institutions. And there will be also a third responsibility for reporting and accountability. So they have to set objectives within their plan, and they'll have to report on, you know, asset use, democratic business support, procurement, employment. So it's really from saying that you have a statutory duty to do this. You need to make a plan about how you're going to do it, and you need to set some objectives that you'll be expected to report on. Now, you know, all best plans made to waste. This is not a panacea. It's not going to make it, you know, happen overnight, but at least it recognises that public bodies have a role to support as anchor institutions the development of community wealth and an economy that truly creates and circulates wealth and health and well-being in the widest sense, and doesn't just create profits for, you know, distant shareholders.
Thank you very much, Martin. It's great to know that the grassroots meets institutional policy in the midway in Scotland, and hopefully this can inspire more transformation of food systems on the ground and possibly in EU level, because it's really important that all these initiatives kind of are supported by EU level policy and not pushed away through local food procurement, for example. Yeah. So we are.
If only we were still part of the EU in Scotland, then we might be able to help that.
We still have spaces of exchange and inspiration. So I'll pass it on to Dacia to close this session. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us. I hope we can have more spaces like this to exchange. It was really an honor to hear your work.
Thank you very much, Kat, and all our speakers and practitioners today. I would like to invite you to maybe share your contacts on the chat. because this conversation today has been so fruitful and so inspiring. I'm sure that more connections will come out of this, and then you all have such incredible experience and expertise in the domains that you're working in that maybe we could also share that if there's a need. There were quite a few questions in the chat as well. So thank you again for being here. And as always, and I'm sure Kat agrees, we welcome you to engage with our policy positionings at ECOLISE so that we can further refine and consolidate the impact that we can bring in Brussels, again, as Kat was saying. And moving forward to our closing moment, I would like to bring back your attention to the European Citizens Initiative on the right to food, and the idea of food as a human right. If you agree with this, if you think that we should all be able to eat good food and safe food, and food produced locally and food produced in a just way, in a fair way, which also gives us a decent wage to live on, as Martin was also saying, I want to invite you to contribute to this alliance, either via signatures or by joining this alliance as well. I'm going to be sharing here the demands that the Good Food for All campaign makes. I don't think we'll have time to go through them now, but you have them there and you can consult them later. And if you're already familiar and have your idea at hand and wish to contribute now to this European Citizens Initiative, I'm sending you the link where you can sign it, actually. We're looking at gathering 1 million signatures until the end of the year, like I was saying, to enshrine in the European Union the idea that food is a human right, and that relocalization, sustainability, and overall, like it was said today, a food economy, a food system which is oriented towards community care and fairness is where we want to go to. So if you agree with this, please sign the European Citizens Initiative, and also feel free, obviously, to share with your networks and allies or friends this ECI. And lastly, before thanking you all again for joining us today, I would also like to invite you to the next event in the Communities for Future Good Food for All advocacy campaign, titled Farming with Nature, Regeneration, Livelihoods, and the New Social Contract for Europe's Farmers and Peasants, which will take place on the 7th of May from 2 p.m. CET. Registrations are now open. I will share the link right now. So we will also be very happy for you to join us on that occasion. We also received a question in the chat, and I will close on this note regarding our future and the future of our food and of our access to food, given the geopolitical context in the Middle East. I think that is probably one of the main reasons now, like Davie was saying, right? Never let a good crisis go to waste, for us to come together and join our forces and do this transformation of food systems now, starting by relocalizing our food economies, going toward community wealth, and strengthening our political alliances in Brussels and elsewhere. That said, thank you all very much for being here today. I hope to see you in May for the next event regarding farming with nature. I hope you all have a great afternoon, a peaceful afternoon. Let's enjoy the spring and make a change together. Thank you very much.